Hi Bloomies, welcome to Bloemfontein Property Showcase. I'm Khanyi and I'm your host today. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term conveyancing or transferring attorney, and I'm sure as a first-time buyer you're probably wondering what is that. But today we have a transferring attorney, Khanyi Shanay, who will be unpacking all of this for us today, and she's joined us to come and tell us exactly what it entails to be a conveyancer. In the heart of South Africa, there's a city full of opportunities, charm, and untold property stories. Welcome to Bloemfontein Property Showcase. Hi Shanay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Khanyi, only a pleasure.
So can you just tell us or introduce to us who you are, your firm, and what it is that you do?
Yes, so I'm Khanyi Shanay, relatively new in the space. Resigned from a corporate firm last year where I was doing conveyancing and decided to make the bold move of starting my own firm. Yes. So as of July 2024, I've been running my own firm, focusing mostly on conveyancing and trying to broaden it nationwide currently.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much. So can you just take us through, or before we go to the process of conveyancing, what is conveyancing? What does it mean? And why is it relevant in the property industry?
Okay, so a lot of people always, when they think property, they automatically think like real estate agents.
Yeah.
But they're so quick to forget that there's a whole legal side to property.
Yes.
The transferring thereof, the zoning thereof, everything relating to that. Contracts, compliance, everything relating to that. So conveyancers are the middleman between buying and owning.
Yes.
So we basically deal with, all the legalities relating to the transferring process, and then we're the middleman between the sellers, the buyers, and the deeds office, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let's go specifically when we have a buyer and a seller and a transaction is taking place where a home is being sold or being bought. What is the conveyancing or the transferring process thereof? Where does it begin? And why are you important in that phase?
Okay, so what would happen is most of the time, and what most people don't know, is that the seller is actually the person to choose the transferring attorney,
yes.
not the buyer.
Yes.
But both parties will then report to their conveyancer of choice, and the conveyancer will then draft what's called an offer to purchase, just stipulating all the conditions of the contract, the purchase price, any conditions extra that the parties have agreed to, and then that's then signed by the parties. After that, the conveyancer can then start running the conveyancing process, which is then, getting rate clearance certificates, paying transfer duty, getting transfer duty receipts, putting everything essentially together to lodge at the deeds office.
Okay.
So from then the offer to purchase, will go into, we most of us use software,
yes.
just capturing all the details of the buyer and seller, ensuring that we have all FICA documentation, which will be their IDs, their proof of address, anything relating to their income and how they are covering yes. these expenses. We'll then do an application for the rates clearance certificate from the municipality, which could be a bit of a lengthy process depending on what the status of the property is. We then apply for the transfer duty receipt. We do that via e-filing through SASH. We then get the figures for each,
yes.
Which is then payable. Then if the property is bonded currently, we need to apply to the bank to get the cancellation figures.
Yes.
Then once that's received, the bank unfortunately then picks their attorney of choice to deal with the bond cancellation. And then once we've received everything, we can then draft everything we need to, get the buyer, the seller to sign everything they need to.
Yes.
And then we go ahead with the lodging process at the deeds office.
So that's quite a lengthy process, and I'm sure a lot of viewers or first-time buyers are not even aware that It's not just, okay, I like this home, I'm going to sign the OTP. OTP, for those of you who don't know, is an offer to purchase. And then we're just going to get the property, get the title deed in my name, and we're done. It's a whole, very lengthy process and intricate process. So you've mentioned quite a lot, and I want to go into the details of each step. But before I go any further, let's start with the contract. That was the first step, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the common mistakes that you pick up from OTPs? Maybe from the buyer's side, or which is in fact the agent's responsibility, right? To make sure that it's been signed properly or correctly, and then it doesn't get sent back. So what are the common mistakes you've picked up?
So common mistakes I pick up is maybe if there is a mistake on the OTP, it being crossed out and amended without initials from each party. That's a very common one. Another one is just maybe real estate agents not being cognizant of the actual clauses that they add to OTPs, and then later on it could, catch on with them. But I wouldn't say that I find too many faults in the OTP. It's a rather straightforward contract. But a lot of the time what does happen is prior to finding maybe an agent, mostly in private sales actually, before the parties come to a conveyancer, they've already sent money without knowing that it actually has to go through the conveyancer's trust account and all of that. So I think I've moved away from OTPs a bit now, but those are most of the main problems or mistakes that I come across.
So before I go any further, just the last point on the contract, who draws up this contract? The OTP.
So if there is a real estate agent, the real estate agent does so. But if it is a private sale, the conveyancer can or should.
Okay, I think that's something I also wasn't aware of, so thank you for shedding light on that. Okay, and then you've mentioned the transferring costs. Now, who is liable for these transferring costs?
So the transferring costs will be paid by the buyer.
Okay.
We get a lot of questions for an estimate of what the transfer fees will be. And it's difficult to say because it goes according to what the purchase price is.
Okay.
So we depend on software which already has most of the scales included in the software. So it's difficult. I think our brains have become a bit lazy to say, 200,000, this is what I'd be charging for transfer fees. So we go according to certain scales based on the purchase price.
Okay, but just on the top of your head, just to give the viewers an idea, let's say there's a home that's being listed for 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give some sort of estimate there?
So I'll take it back to a property that I did that was worth 1.2.
Okay.
My fee was about, I think, 21.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. This is off the top of my head. But what people also don't realize is that's just the fee. We also have different disbursements, FICA identification that we need to go through. We need to pay for the applications for the rates clearance certificates we need to pay. And it's rates clearance on the Centlex side and Mangaung side, as well as the fees then for the transfer duty receipt.
Yes.
So all in all, I think I got to about 28,000.
Okay. So before I head on to what you just alluded to, which is the deeds office and Centlex and so forth, what would you say is, if we could just give by bullet form, the fees included in transferring the property? Because like you say, it's not like all this money is coming to you and, getting a big fat wallet. No, you have to pay fees on behalf of the client. So what is the 4 or 3, these are the main, services I need to pay for?
Okay, so number one, obviously there is the transferring fee. We'll leave that out of this one. But then there are things like postages and petties, and from that we basically use that money for any couriering that needs to take place, for petrol driven to and from different places to get different documents or signatures or whatever you need. Then we have deed searches that we charge for. So as soon as we get an instruction or the offer to purchase is signed, we immediately do a deed search to see whether the property really is in the seller's name, what the title deed number is, when last it was sold, all of that information. And then, as I mentioned, the different fees for transfer duty, rates clearance.
Okay.
That's about it.
So I want to get to the central part and the rates and status of the property, because I think that's a very important factor a lot of first-time buyers are not aware of.
Yeah.
But before I get there, you just mentioned something I want to touch on again. You said that there is a title deed search.
Yeah.
What is a title deed search, and do you have to pay for this? Where do you go to get the service done?
So you can either make use of the software that you use. I personally use Lexis Convey.
Okay.
And what they do is they have a LexisNexis tab where you can run different searches. You can do a company search, you can do a person search, you can do a property search.
Yes.
But most of the time what we do is a property search, especially if we already have the earth number or just the street number to convert to an earth number. And we'll run that just to see who the owner is, what their ID number is. It essentially is also a FICA compliance process of sorts, because it is also linked to Home Affairs. So they confirm ID numbers, full names, all of that. It's also tied in with the deeds office, so the title deed numbers is the same as what you'll find at the deeds office and so on and so forth. So, but a deed search like that would cost you about 40 Rand.
Okay.
Where a search on a person would be about 21 Rand, 90 cents to be exact.
Just to close it off, you mentioned something very important, and that as an attorney or lawyers or someone in the legal space, we are all aware of that big act, the POPIA Act.
Yeah.
And you said it's linked to Home Affairs. That's like very sensitive information on your hands. So who has access to the system, or if I need info that requires the title deed search, can I come as just an ordinary person, or what is the...
So it is sensitive, but what makes it a bit less sensitive is the fact that you as a layman can walk into the deeds office and request the same information.
Okay.
If you have a property description, you can walk into the deeds office and say, I need a deed search on this property, and it will give you exactly the same information that we are privy to.
Okay.
But to also set everyone at ease, the software would only be available to the conveyancers and their secretaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is secured, well secured?
Yes, very well secured. Passwords, everyone has their own password, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's head on over to the section where you were talking about the CENTLEC and rates, and you need to get a certificate. What is that certificate? Why is it important? The clearances.
Yeah.
To make sure that, this property is in this state and you can occupy it. That part of the transferring process.
Okay, so I'll start with the rates clearance certificate.
Okay.
And that we get from the municipality.
Okay.
And it basically states that there are no arrears on this property, and that the rates and taxes have been covered for the duration that this transferring process may take.
Okay.
So we usually pay it about 2 or 3 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And then all arrears will be covered as well.
Okay. So
So it's basically just to prove that this property is being sold with a clear municipal record.
okay.
They are also, so you'll pay your outstanding amounts
Yes.
plus 2-3 months rates and taxes in advance, and then only get the rates clearance certificate. And that is a big requirement that also needs to be lodged at the deeds office.
Okay, just to stop you there, we're still in the transferring stage of certificates from the municipality. Who pays these rates and taxes? Is it the seller, or is it you as the attorney? How does that work?
So the buyer will pay the money into my trust account, and I'll transfer it from my trust account.
Yes.
But the buyer is
Liable.
responsible for the rates clearance
Okay.
figures. Yeah.
And how many months in advance, or who's responsible for the rates that are still owing, And then the rates that we pay in advance while we're busy transferring the property.
The buyer.
Okay.
The buyer will pay all of that, unless the seller makes sure that they've paid up their account prior.
Okay.
So we have had situations where buyers are not happy with the amount they need to pay strictly for the rates clearance certificate. The arrears are through the roof.
Yes.
And then there's interest obviously that occurs on those arrears, and then it's the 2-3 months in advance. So it can become a bit of a problem.
Now, how do you go about when you have to sort of dispute or resolve this, frustration from the buyers? Like, especially having your legal background in terms of education, is it the fact that, you will be occupying this property essentially, or what is the reasoning behind the fact that the buyer is liable for these costs?
I'm not sure exactly what the reason is, but according to the Act, the Deeds Registry Act, it stipulates that the buyer is held accountable. But what we usually do is, if the arrear amount is very high, the municipality offers incentives.
Okay.
So they will look at what you owe for the past, or what's owed for 120 days plus.
Okay.
And they'll half that amount.
Oh, okay.
But the trick with that is that you can't transfer within 6 months after that amount is paid. So it slows down the entire process. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, let's head on over to the next stage. You were talking about getting all these certificates. Besides the rates from the municipality, you mentioned the second one.
The transfer duty receipt.
Yes.
Okay, so the transfer duty is payable anytime a property is being transferred from one person to another.
Okay.
It is payable to SASH. So they also have their own scale, starting at, I think it's 1.1 million.
Okay.
So any property lower than 1.1 million won't have to pay transfer duty.
Okay.
But any higher than that, they also have their own scales.
Yes.
It's also subject to what the Minister of Finance says every year in his speech.
Okay.
Usually the amount is pushed back a little every time. So
Yes.
we've come from 1 million to 1.1 million. But essentially they give us an amount that's payable, and once that amount's paid by the buyer usually, then we receive the transfer duty receipt.
Okay.
Which is also very necessary in as one of the documents to be
Yes.
lodged at the deeds office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let's head on over. I think you mentioned the status of the property. So I know in my experience there was an electrical certificate that needed to be issued. So what other certificates are there that need to be issued or show that, okay, this is the status of the property, it can be occupied? Yes.
Okay, so apart from the ones I've mentioned, the most important, and not really important for lodgement purposes, but more for FICA purposes, is the COC, as we refer to it, is the Certificate of Compliance. And that basically just confirms that electrically everything is sound in the house.
Okay.
But when I was referring to the status of a house, I was kind of speaking about it in the context of Mangaung.
Okay.
A lot of the time people have transferred to prepaid meters,
Yes.
but the paperwork isn't necessarily updated at the municipality. So there are many different issues. We'll struggle to find a water meter or to
Yes.
read the water meter, and they'll send out a team, and that team might take 2-3 weeks to really get to the property, to
Yes.
read the water meter, to update the figures so that the amounts are maybe a bit lower, etc.
Yeah.
But most important outside of that is the certificate of compliance, and the conveyancers just keep that in their file.
Okay. You've given us so much intricate details. I'm sure a lot of our viewers had no idea of. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And we were transferring the property, and you've mentioned all that. So I would just like to head on over to a term you've been using a lot, just to explain to our viewers, what is lodgement, and is it different to transferring? Okay,
so lodgement is basically at the deeds office the first process in terms of registering the property in the buyer's name.
Okay.
So it's a whole process, another whole process that we go through with the deeds office. But essentially, day of lodgement is just a cover with the new deed in it, which will be rendered the new title deed.
Yes.
in it with the power of attorney, which stipulates that the seller is appointing the conveyancer as the agent to perform this transfer. With the rates clearance certificate, the transfer duty receipt, and then the holding title deed.
Okay.
We put that in a cover and we literally leave it on a counter at the deeds office where they scan it into the system.
Okay.
So from Lodgement, it goes through different levels of examining. There are 3 levels of examination. So it takes about 4 to 5 days to come up on something we call prep. So it's called preparation of the deed. So you prepare it for the registration thereof. So then there will be any notes that an examiner might have picked up, maybe a spelling mistake, an ID number that might be incorrect, or small discrepancies. There could also be big discrepancies where they just reject the deed as a whole. But in most cases, if you're lucky, that doesn't happen. And it comes up on prep, you can proceed it, should everything be sound, and then you can register it the next day.
Okay.
So it's about a 7-day process once it's lodged.
And I'm going to go to that. When you say it can be rejected.
Yeah.
So what leads to the whole rejectment of that transaction? Is it the small discrepancies, or is there a big, error that has to be fixed? What disqualifies the file from being, it needs to go back in?
So there's many different reasons. It could be very small to very big. Sometimes certain examiners are more strict than others. But it could be an incorrect ID number, an incorrect name, property description is mentioned incorrectly. We've left out conditions that's on the old title deed, that's not on the new title deed. Or what could happen is that the search that we've run on the property doesn't match the most updated version of what's in the deeds office, or maybe something different could have happened on the property that maybe wasn't properly registered and doesn't reflect on our side but reflects at the deeds office. So it's quite sensitive, and there's no way of always knowing. I mean, as a conveyancer, you do your due diligence to be sure that everything is perfect before lodging, because you'll also have to pay the extra fee from your own money should it be rejected. So we try and avoid that at all costs.
Well, thank you so much for spending an hour or so the afternoon with us. You shared some important information with us that the viewers will find very, very valuable, and we hope to see you again for part 2. Just again, remind the viewers who you are, your firm's name, where they can find you, and we'll put your contact details for them to contact you should they need to.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Shanay Solomon from Solomon Associates Incorporated, and we are on TikTok, not yet active, but you can follow us. We're on Instagram under Solomon Associates. So please do follow us, and I'll be sharing much more educational tips, also launching my website, and that will also be very educational. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
So be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Videos drop every Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure that you follow our social media platforms. That is Bloemfontein Property Showcasing. See you there.